What happened to the weird outcast at your school who everyone made fun of? Still holding his head held high while dressing up as Ishigo or Naruto and going to the obscurest anime fan meetups. Good for him, I suppose. He died in a fire. It was sad. I wasn't friends with him because our schedules just didn't sync up, but my best friend had some classes with him and they were buddies. The outcast didn't do anything super weird, he just had really long hair, thick glasses, and read Harry Potter all the time and was super poor. His parents had some family staying in the backyard in a camper van. They had daisy-chained a bunch of power strips and extension cords. It caused a fire in the house. The mother, father, and older brother got out. When the outcast didn't come out, his older brother went in after him. They both died. They found the older brother collapsed at his side. It's interesting, actually. When he died, it became trendy at school to pretend he was your friend before he died. Everyone talked about how they missed him and how he was such a good friend. Even the people who would mercilessly tease him did this. Most of these kids went to the grief counselor too. Everyone deals with grief differently, and maybe they felt guilty they treated him like garbage. But they still continued to ceaselessly make fun of my friend who had been his real friend, so I don't think they actually gave a crap. A kid I knew in middle school was weird, really into bats, wolves, and other things. He seemed nice and we all egged him on to do the wolf man, and then he'd growl and snarl and make weird faces. He also barely talked, and when he did, it was murmurs. He was sort of weird, but nobody was ever mean to him or made fun of him. We just sort of accepted and embraced it as a class. A few years later, after going to different high schools, I heard he got expelled for biting a kid. I can only imagine how that went down. Moved 1,000 miles away, learned a trade and did quite well, joined Aryan nations along the way somewhere, died in a motorcycle wreck aged 38. Oh boy, that turned real dark real quick. There was no weird outcast at my school. Oh, crap. Yep, I love watching realizations happen in real time. But there actually were no outcasts at my high school. Oh gosh darn it. Got caught selling crystal at the drive-thru at a local taco joint. Good old small towns. He married a popular girl and became the most popular teacher at the same school. Oh, you know, just drove his car into his ex's home and then riddled her and her new boyfriend with lead. It turns out he's autistic. We just didn't have a word for it back then. Now he's involved with taxidermy. The kid got expelled and went to prison on 6 counts of arson 2 weeks before graduation. He lit 6 portable toilets on fire and is still in to this day. Man, that guy must have really hated porta potties. There was a girl in my grad class who was brilliant, 100% or more in every class and very motivated with her studies. She didn't have any friends and people knew she was strange, but everyone kind of left her alone or was nice when they came into contact. She ended up staying in my hometown, pretty small, only a community college with not many programs. I don't believe she ever went to higher education. She ended up self-deleting a year after our grad. A few things I should clear up. There were often bonus points on exams and assignments, and that's how she got more than 100%. She said she didn't want friends, and there were people willing, but she didn't believe in friendship. I also believe she had a very good support system at home, but she had an anxiety disorder, which she was getting help for. And finally, if anyone is in this position where they're lonely, please know that it can get better. It might take a bit of effort and reaching out, which I know can seem impossible, but people are generally very receptive and friendly. I made friends with her in school because I knew it sucked to be alone and different. I was exposed to mentally handicapped people since my mum worked at a care facility and cared for them. 12 years after we kind of stopped talking and led our own lives, she tells me she got married and thinks without the friendship we had, she wouldn't have had the confidence to do a lot of the things she had done and is doing now. I don't talk to her anymore, but she's happily married, holding a steady job, and had a kid last time we talked. Well, one of the well-known fat kids in my school moved to Alaska and lost all of his weight, and I'm pretty sure the other one decided to fight on the other side of the war on terror. I started working customer service thinking it'd help me build up my social skills. Fast forward 10 years, I still work in the service industry, have great social skills and also hate everyone, am broke and want to not be alive. He doused himself in gasoline and lit himself on fire when the popular girl he asked to prom declined. He survived, barely. It's been about 15 years and he's now unemployed and lives with an awful bully of a woman twice his size who cheats on him constantly. His life hasn't gone so well. To explain, the girl who rejected him was and is a really nice person. She had a steady boyfriend and had given the outcast guy no indication she had any interest with him. Also, I didn't mean to offend anyone specifically by pointing out the size of his current girlfriend. I just find it interesting that he ended up with someone more than 450 pounds who treats him so terribly. She uses her size to be intimidating, and I don't think that's ever okay for someone to do. Of the ones I know, one unalived himself a couple of years ago, and another is working at a gas station. Not my school, but my ex-wife's. Mousy little nobody, a year younger than she was, turned out to be Janis Joplin. Dropped out of 3 or 4 different colleges and became a furry. For starters, threatened to kill all 5 non-white people in my school, and then said he'd come back and kill all the people who picked on him. Thankfully, me and a few friends tried to be friends with him. We knew he was a loner. He ended up in jail for the unspeakable act. I was that guy, currently working on my master's in counseling so I can help other outcasts with developing the skills they need to become successful adults, including coping skills. He plays video games professionally now. I don't feel comfortable giving a name, but he plays Dota 2. He isn't a top player, but he's played in many tournaments and he has his own article on the Dota 2 wiki. I heard from him recently, as in like earlier this week. One of the weird guys I went to school with got charged with 50+ counts of indecent exposure. So for him, not so well. It's a sad thing to realize that the most populous answer is like a 50-50 split between they ended up doing really well and they ended up doing horrible things to themselves or others. I hope that we avoid a lot of this second group with proper counseling that kids might get these days, but I'm a little worried. Answering for my brother. He was a short, tiny kid in high school with acne problems and not the best hygiene skills. I knew he didn't have many friends, but it wasn't until I met a girl who was a freshman when he was a senior that I learned he was the outcast and he was made fun of constantly. And he didn't really have friends. In my eyes, my brother was this awesome, funny, great guy, so this really blew my mind. He wound up joining the army at 18, grew to be about 6'4". He advanced quite fast in the army and did really well for himself. He's out now, serving in the National Guard still, moved across the country and is working on obtaining a degree, and is well-traveled with plans to open his own business. He's the most outgoing person I know who can make friends like nothing and loves making people laugh. I knew he had it in him all this time, and it's sad that the kids in high school couldn't see that. Despite being more than 30 years old, she somehow managed to Facebook friend almost every single person we went to school with going back to kindergarten. Kind of odd that not only would she add them all, but they'd all accept her friend request. He posts space facts, unwarranted like. Rumor has it that she still runs around at break growling at people and pretending she's a dog, cat, vampire, werewolf, dragon, seagull, lion, jaguar, whatever she feels like that day. This was in middle school, she was 13. She chased me into a bathroom and bit me once. They work at a convenience store down the street. They seem happier now, even though they still don't smile or speak much. I was nice to them in high school, so whenever I go there, I always say hi, and they seem happy to see me. He unalived himself. I never knew him that well. He seems like an okay guy and kind of a character. He drove a hearse. He became a smack addict. When he tried to stop, he had a heart attack and died. He was a genuinely nice and good-hearted person as well. Rest in peace, Will. For those of you who are struggling with addiction, my heart is with you. It's a hard road. For those of you who think you're really funny guys for making fun of my deceased friend, or making light of the situation, that isn't yours to make light of. And coming back and reading them really annoys me. Here's hoping that you don't lose anyone the same way. In middle school, the school nerd was this kid. Let's call him Jean-Luc. It was a rough school, predominantly Latino and black, and he was this gangly, awkward white boy with glasses and an enlarged esophagus, so he was always foaming around his mouth. He smelled like dirty clothes, his teeth were always grubby, and his hair was always overgrown. He routinely just acted weird and didn't really have any friends. Fast forward post-high school graduation, he and I had gone to separate high schools, but he lived in the same neighborhood as some of my friends, so I'd occasionally run into him. He'd taken to Wigger style, which was really cringy. This overweight, awkward white boy, same glasses, same foamy mouth, same terrible lisp and poor social skills, living with his parents. By this time, it was apparent that he was slow, so to speak. I have a cousin who's also slow and made the mistake of inviting Jean-Luc to a party where he got caught tickling his pickle in a back bedroom and then lashed out at everyone when they made fun of him, eventually turning a knife on someone, and the police got called. Fast forward to about 2 months ago, I was hit up on Facebook by some guy with a Latino name who said he was Jean-Luc and wanted to reconnect with me. I checked the photos and yep, it was him. I guess he changed his name to something more Latin-sounding because he thought that might make him cooler? Who knows? But he's not at all Latino. Anyways, I asked him what he was doing in life and he said he's in prison, but he can still talk on the phone and asked for my phone number. I declined, but asked why he's in prison. He didn't answer, but in his Facebook pictures there's a series of pictures where he's clearly had the crap beaten out of him, so my guess is he got in a fight that ended badly for someone and he's going away for a while now. In short, it turns out the middle school nerd was slow or mentally disabled. Everyone made fun of him for being weird, but he really had a genuine disability and probably shouldn't have been in mainstream school, let alone the crap one we went to. He ended up going for prison for some kind of violent act. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I was the kid who was bullied a lot in school while also being bullied at home. Tried to self-delete a couple of times, it didn't work obviously. Now I'm almost 18, stressed out of my mind working a fast food job, going to school and doing theatre. I'm losing my hair and a lot of weight from the stress and exhaustion, but I still have a whole life ahead of me. Got a boyfriend who treats me well, and I'm looking into a career in musical theatre. So all in all, I'm healing, and I'll get there someday. I had a pretty darn good life. Almost 5 years in the Navy, followed by a 33-year career and retired at 54. Many of them are still working. I've spent the last 8 years in therapy, I'm still living at home, I don't really leave my house except for the occasional late movie night. I'm too much of a nervous wreck to hold down much of a job, and now pretty much all of my contact with the outside world is done through Facebook and Reddit. He surpassed the entire graduating class in looks as well as tact and class. Right on to him. Maybe the bullying carved character into him. He was magnanimous at the class reunion. I was the weird kid. Now I'm an artist and a drag queen. Drag queen? You definitely won. Takes guts and a big brass pair to do that stuff. Much respect. Yeah, I mean, great for you. In my mind, this isn't too far removed from any other specialist interest kid like the ones who played Dungeons & Dragons or theatre, who was laughed at in school before finally leaving and finding their people years later. It's a wonderful thing to happen and we're happy for you fabulous performer. I'm browsing Reddit. He decided he didn't want to be alive anymore after being expelled from our middle school for hacking into the school computers and changing his grades. She started making adult films with her boyfriend and putting it on the internet. Oh wait, that's me. I was the weird outcast. Haha. One day I realized that having no reason to live also means I have nothing to lose. I hit a critical point where not caring about anything became not giving a frick about anything. Hiked most of the Appalachian Trail last year without ever having hiked before because screw it. Going back for the last leg this year because screw it. After that, I'm moving to Vietnam to teach English because screw it. I think he's a shift manager at Sonic now or something. Has a girlfriend, even. Miss you, Snaggletooth. The kid was a refugee and came to a new country and new school, and instead of welcoming him and helping him adjust, the small class just made fun of him. Now he's a deadbeat. I'm not sure if it was all the trauma of fleeing a country or the trauma of being a social pariah for years on end. And sure, kids get picked on, but he left school without any friends. I don't recall him being invited to any parties, even the big ones. Can you imagine, day in and day out, no one even noticing or caring about you? No one to share your feelings with? No one to tell about your good days or your bad times? It's one of those if I could turn back time things. I'd definitely have more compassion toward him. I wasn't the weird outcast, but I was never super popular. I got picked on and bullied just because when I'd started to fit in, we'd move. Then I had to keep starting over, new school, new people. Kids weren't as accepting of new people as they are nowadays in my experience. Anyway, I ended up dropping out and went to Job Corps. Got my good enough diploma and have been through many jobs over the years. Dealt with massive anxiety and depression. Through a series of very fortunate events, I now work at my youngest son's elementary school. I have various things I do there, from lunch cashier to reading tutor for 8 students. I volunteer in several classrooms, helping the teachers with whatever they need. I assist in running a food pantry once a week out of the cafeteria, and I just started an after-school Lego program with a small group of kids that focuses on building relationships with each other and teamwork while utilizing Lego. I'm working on going to school to get some certifications I need to become a preschool assistant next year, and then I think I'm going to go for some degrees to someday have my own class. I feel better than I ever have in my life. I'm making a difference in people's lives. That probably saved my life. Looking at all your other stories kind of made me sad that so many stories end badly or, well, ended at all. I just turned 40 and it took half my life, but I'm finally beginning to live. I read something a while back that really gave me inspiration to keep doing what I'm doing. Be the person that you needed when you were younger. I started doing all of my stuff because I wanted my son to have a better experience than I had. Now I'm doing it because all of the kids deserve to have that chance. Went to prison for unaliving his awful father. Got help, got successful after release, happy and healthy with a wife and 3 kids. Still has cooties. Not me, but my parents went to school with the OKC bomber back in the 80s. I was the weird kid. There were stranger and more mentally off people than me, but I had no friends and was bullied quite a bit. Girls would date me as a joke with their friends to see who could break up with me in the worst way possible. But I graduated early, saved up money, moved a state over, met my wife and got married 3 months later. All of this happened within the year I graduated. I'm moving to Europe soon to be with my wife. I'm going to a free college in Europe, married to a very beautiful, amazing Euro babe, studied law. I'd say that pain and suffering I was put through finally ended and helped me become a better person. I was that kid. From my first day of first grade to my last day of my senior year in high school, I was made fun of daily. I fell into severe depression and attempted to unalive myself a few times because of it. I never thought it would get any better. I had and have clinical depression on top of it, so that made it harder to deal with. I'd fake being sick by mixing random condiments and food in the toilet and telling my mum I threw up so I could get out of going to school. I had a few times where it got so bad that I planned to rampage and unalive some of the kids I went to school with. My dad owned a lot of weaponry, and I knew how to use them. I had a mental breakdown one day, and in the midst of it, I told my mum about it, whilst also telling her either I delete myself or all the kids hurting me. She grabbed me and cried, begging me not to be a statistic. Now I'm 24, I have my own house, my own car, no kids, by choice, a decent paying job and a boyfriend that loves me. I still have my bad days, and I still have days where I think about crap that happened to me in school and it makes me angry. I still have clinical depression and anxiety. I still have my psychotic moments, but I went to therapy for them and I know how to cope a little better now. However, I try telling myself that it's all behind me and I'm no longer a child and I don't have to be forcibly subjected to that any longer. Those people didn't matter back then and they sure don't matter now. I've had a couple of people from my school days apologize to me, and I see a lot of them that have gone to prison or are in prison right now, have multiple kids that they don't care for or don't want, are on substances, or are just generally unhappy. I take a lot of pride in seeing that my life is better than their lives. I guess that's all that hatred built up inside me. I switched from being obsessed with anime to being obsessed with cacti. I have a pretty okay collection. I only started in late 2015 and it's coming along slowly, but I'm pleased with it. This certainly wasn't the biggest compared to some of the rags to riches success stories that we've seen so far, but it might be the cutest, most wholesome one we've had, so well done there. Her locker was next to mine in high school and she reeked of body odor. She was odd and would often talk about her rabbits or would mention things like, she was unable to cut her hair until the new moon. Now, she's a gorgeous model, and I'm wasting my Saturday night writing a story on the internet. All of these remind me of Tyrone. None of his classmates liked him because of his stupidity, especially his teacher, who was also yelling at him, "You're driving me insane, Tyrone." One day, Tyrone's mum came to school to check on how he was doing. The teacher told his mum honestly that her son was simply a disaster, getting very low marks, and that she had never seen such a dumb boy in her entire teaching career. The mum was shocked at the feedback and withdrew her son from school and moved out of Detroit, relocating to Cleveland. 25 years later, the teacher was diagnosed with an incurable cardiac disease. All the doctors strongly advised her to have heart surgery, which only one surgeon could perform at the Cleveland clinic. Left with no other options, the teacher decided to have the operation, which was successful. When she opened her eyes after the surgery, she saw a handsome doctor smiling down at her. She wanted to thank him, but couldn't talk. Her face started to turn blue. She raised her hand, trying to tell him something, but eventually died. The doctor was shocked and was trying to work out what went wrong. When he turned around, he saw our friend Tyrone working as a janitor in the clinic, who had unplugged the oxygen equipment in order to connect his floor buffer. This was a joke, by the way. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.